On behalf of the captain and the crew, we'd like to welcome you on board Flight 077, now departing for the land of getting real help. Cabin crew, arm doors, and crosscheck.
Thank you for listening to us today. If this is the first time listening to this podcast, welcome aboard. If you're a returning listener, we're glad you're back. Seat 1A provides tips and tricks from more than 5 million miles worth of flying to help you take off from the crowd.
In today's experience recorded on the 6th of October, 2023, we're going to talk about what it takes to actually get some real help when you have some travel issues.
And then we'll wrap up with a discussion about the world of aviation.
Help, help, help. How do you get it these days? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, we've read stories in the last experience. We talked about that Singapore Airlines couple flying from Paris to Singapore to New Zealand with a drooling and farting dog and getting bad service and token compensation.
And it's taken them months to get it to a point of resolve for them.
Exactly. I mean, and then there's an article, recently, they in Straits Times out of Singapore to say that they finally got the $1,600 Singapore dollars of a refund back from Singapore Airlines. And it's like, well, you guys could have Singapore, you could have had this figured out at the beginning, saved a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of time, and saved your company a bunch of goodwill cost and loss of face in the global media.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Really kind of disheartening to see what this couple had to go through, especially from one of the top tier airlines in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah. Backing it up a little bit in terms of historically, from the generation we're from and what our parents would have done is you would have booked a ticket for air travel, probably through a travel agent. And that was your person, your physical human being that you would call up, go to an office or something. Or perhaps you bought it directly from the airline and you could go to a brick and mortar shop in a city or to the airport and get your issues dealt with there. That has practically gone away. I mean, there's still travel agents you can go to, the big conglomerates like Flight Center and whatnot. But, with the new dawn of technology and everything going online, it's all very different now as to how you get things resolved. And it's kind of swung the other way into the pendulum where you're kind of fending for yourself a lot of the time.
Exactly. Like your travel agent was the person going to go fight the battles for you when stuff went wrong.
Yeah. And whatever they said was also gospel because you had little information, the theory of getting anything done on the internet wasn't really relevant at that time. So if they said, no, it costs X and these are your only options, you said, okay, I have to pick from that.
And you're the expert. I'll believe what you say.
Yeah. Now, if you have any sort of savviness in travel or, have some Seat 1A expertise, you question and you think there's got to be a better way, or I'm not satisfied with that answer. I need to escalate and do more or find out more, try and get more for what I'm trying to do.
Exactly. And I mean, the pandemic, we look at airlines around the world having pilot shortages and crewing shortages and issues with that. But the other thing that got lost when a bunch of people left the industry is you had incredibly talented people in the high touch customer experience end that left, and getting them back and trying to, well, if they did come back, remember how to do everything. Or two, if there's new people, many of these people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah. It's funny in the world of the call center, whoever's on the other end of whether it be a phone call or a chat mechanism, I think in our minds, we all think this is wonderful call center with big airline logo on the wall and it's all there. But a lot of the times people are working from home. Like these are home agents that are
Yeah.
doing customer service, and nothing
I
wrong
mean,
with it. It's
JetBlue
just maybe
did
work from home.
work from home for years, even before COVID.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean
And then
it
everybody
works.
else caught on. It's like, all right, like if you've got a secure connection, VPN or something to the company side for credit card info, it's like, all right, anybody can work anywhere pretty much.
The only downside is that when if that agent or person who's trying to help you needs an answer or has to escalate, it's not like they can sort of put you on hold, roll their wheelie chair around the corner to some sort of superior
Hey, have you
person.
ever seen this?
Yeah, or can you override this? I feel we should.
Yeah.
For them, they then have to join a call and get into a queue, and so it gets quite elaborate.
Or chat or something with supervisor and be like, hey, like I got this going on. So
Yeah, but I think the one thing that, and this is kind of where we're going in this experience today, is you make contact with an airline to get something resolved. Things happen on a phone or a chat or through email or virtually versus what can be done locally, when you're staring at an aircraft are two very
mhm.
different things. And I think you have a recent example of that with a recent trip you took.
Yeah. So mid-September, I was flying from. I hadn't flown with Porter for quite a while, and hadn't flown out of Toronto Island Airport for quite a while, and I was flying with Porter from Toronto Island to Newark Airport, and I'm actually on the way to the airport, and I get a text message to say, "Yeah, your flight's been canceled."
And
It's
from
like
Porter directly.
from Porter, yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, get out of the subway, go back home, and like, okay, what now? And they were like, okay, this one's canceled, but you're like, it was like a 10 o'clock flight. They're like, you're rescheduled for 5. But the thing was, I was meeting a bunch of people in New Jersey, and then we were going to drive out to the coast. So I'm like, okay, well, I obviously can't meet you anymore. And there was some juggling around figuring out what to do. And people in my party who had traveled with Porter fairly frequently from the island airport, they're like, yeah, just go to the airport and ask to stand by. So
Yeah.
I packed back up, went back out to the airport, went up to the desk, and the person looks at it and he's like, okay, well, there's some seats left there in the whatever the premium economy of Porter, like the front of the plane tickets.
The
Like he's like,
Porter
yeah, these are
Reserve or something it's
yeah,
called.
something, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, there's a different fare class for these, but let me just juggle a few things around to somehow quote unquote upgrade you to be able to get this seat.
Great.
And so he did, and boom, I was like only what 3 hours delayed as opposed to like 6 or 7. So
Oh wow. So that's quite a save.
and was able to, along with a few other, few changes and plans from Newark, including New Jersey Transit to all of New Jersey on a train, was able to pretty much make it only about 3 or 4 hours later than originally planned.
So this is a great example and it's a great segue from our previous experience. We were talking about all things ticketing. You get this email saying flight's been canceled for whatever reason. Flight's been canceled, fine. And any person would then make contact with the airline. If they go online, it's one thing, or if they call in and the people that you're dealing with at that stage, it's very black and white. They're like, okay, it's been canceled. We have to reaccommodate, and we can only reaccommodate in that fare class, in that category. And this flight has no space, that flight has no space. Well, this one does, and that's it. End of discussion. Whereas at the airport, reality is a whole different game because they can see who's shown up, who hasn't, how many seats are available, and they just want to start moving people.
Yeah, can we get a button to the seat and open up this one that I was in before?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, it's like I think during the day, from Island Airport to Newark, it's like at least once every couple hours. So I mean, it's like it's a pretty regular flight. Say, like if it was uh, Los Angeles to San Francisco, or Madrid to or sort of like a London to Amsterdam or something. It'd be like, or say like a Kuala Lumpur to Singapore. It's like, all right, there's flights happening all the time with the airline.
Yeah.
You've got a pretty good chance of getting something pretty quick. But if it's like, okay, we fly this flight once a day,
Exactly. Then you really got to like pull out all the stops. And that's a good point. You talk about frequency and capacity. It's in the airline's best interest to just get people moving as soon as they can, if there's a cancellation, and this is what I find a lot of contact center airline stuff don't necessarily, they're disconnected from this because they're just dealing with things on computers and it's all data at that point. But at the airport, you want to just keep these planes moving because the last thing you want is at the end of the night, the last flight becomes the last stop and there's not enough capacity.
there's not enough room. Yeah,
And then you're dealing with a whole nother hornet's nest of customer service negativity. So I can see, the agent that helped you, bravo to him. And he was probably like, okay, one guy, let's just get him going. It's one less headache to deal with later on potentially.
exactly. And it's like, all right, he's willing to leave middle of the day. It leaves a slot open for like a 5 o'clock Friday flight that who knows who might want to book.
Or even pay and
Exactly.
make up that lost revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're right. These are the things, when I was working airport ground, we would look at and try and figure out. It's like, it's sort of like this always mantra was like, move forward, always keep everything in progress. Don't delay if there's an impact that can be made later.
Exactly.
Take care of it now. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just had a example of interesting customer contact and things kind of going a little bit all over the place. And the last experience we talked about a family member of mine that was traveling on Cathay Pacific that has come back to life, which is great. And they were coming in from Hong Kong to Vancouver to Edmonton, Canada. So this was the return journey. She had it booked. She had to change the date of travel, so extend by a week. Fine. The first flight was a code share with WestJet Airlines. So Edmonton, Vancouver, layover, and then Vancouver, Hong Kong, Kuala Lumpur, all on Cathay. Fine. So she had an extra bag that she wanted to pay for, like a third piece. Fine. And then she also asked me to help out to do the seat selection. Fine. And these are all fairly standard mechanical things that take place. So I said, okay, send me info. So she sends me info and it's all, everything's booked directly with Cathay. There's no third party agent and all this. So I'm saying, I'm trying to find the WestJet booking reference number.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at all the paperwork sent, nothing. I said, can you send me a photo of your previous boarding pass? Nothing. Because the boarding pass she used when she flew on the Vancouver to Edmonton WestJet leg was the one printed
Issued by
Cathay in KL, in Kuala Lumpur.
Yeah.
Because what I'm looking for on that boarding pass potentially could have been a booking reference. Nothing.
Or any ticket number. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you take a picture of your bag tag that was affixed to the bag? Nothing. Because it was issued by
Cathay.
Yeah. So I'm scratching my head. I'm like, I can't check her in on WestJet or pay for her bag because I just simply can't get in. I don't have the WestJet booking reference number or PNR. I'm like, okay, well, let's see what we can do. So, I go deep into the Cathay site and, at the end of the day, it says you must make contact. And I'm dreading this. It's like a, Friday evening. I'm like, oh man, I gotta call
on a Friday night.
Yeah. But then there was a new feature. Contact us via WhatsApp.
And I've seen that before too. Yeah.
I never used it though. I was like, really? So I jump onto WhatsApp and follow through with it. And, there's a queue and eventually, and what was great is I was literally sitting on the couch watching TV the entire time. And I just had the phone, on my lap. And as it would light up, I would pause, chat my interaction, let it rest, and keep on going. It was very convenient. Yeah. So yeah, there was an agent, someone on the other end helping me. What was weird is there was no authentication. I mean, I just gave the passenger name and the Cathay booking reference. There was no tell us your address, maybe your password. That was a bit spooky. It was like, I could be anybody here.
Hmm.
Yes. And yeah, and we'll talk about bag tags and stuff in a second. Anyway, at the end of the day, I was like, okay, can you find the WestJet booking reference? And at first, like, so sorry, no, I don't see it. So I went back and said, sorry, no, it must be there somewhere. Like, you're the
She
customer.
arrived. She's got to go back.
Yeah, you're the Cathay agent. Please dig. Go on and on. And eventually she found it. Okay, great. So now I have the WestJet booking reference number. Now comes the seat selection because the whole time, so this is part two, I'm on the Cathay website to try and do a seat selection, whether it be paid or not paid. And for that flight from Vancouver to Hong Kong, it simply said seat selection is not available. Okay, well, that's weird.
But it
Um,
sounds like me when I was trying to figure out Turkish.
totally, totally. And then for the Hong Kong Kuala Lumpur section, seat selection not available. So here I am typing these very long messages on WhatsApp. I'm trying to get a seat selection, any aisle seat. I'm not asking for upgrade or change. I just want to select an aisle seat for this family member. Fine. The agent says I can't assign a seat on the first flight.
Oh no. Oh,
I'm like,
but
what
the
do you
first flight
mean?
would have
You're
been
the
the WestJet
agent. You
one.
can do anything. Even if I was willing to pay, it's like, yeah, the system's not letting me.
So this is like the Vancouver to Hong Kong section.
Yeah, yeah.
Jeez.
Cathay themselves can't even assign a seat. So I'm saying, scratching my head. I'm like, this is just really odd. The Hong Kong to Kuala Lumpur, no problem. She was able to do that. Just, yeah, what seat? I'll find you a nice aisle. Okay, done, assigned. Because of her fare cost, there's no fee, so all good. So then the next question is about baggage. So the traveler has a third piece of baggage. They were allowed two pieces at 23 kilos. There was a third piece, and she was willing to pay. We researched all the prices, and it was going to be $200+ Fine, all good. So I did confirm with the Cathay agent. I said, I'm assuming that we have to pay for the third piece with WestJet. Just want to ensure that we're not going to get dinged by Cathay as well. And so she had, typed out confirmations like, no, because it's a code share, as long as you pay with the first carrier, the bag rides through the whole way. And I was like, that's great. And again, because it's WhatsApp, I guess I could take a screenshot, but it was kind of unnerving. I'm like, okay, well, this agent is telling me this, and the traveler is in Edmonton. I'm in Vancouver. Like, I don't want this traveler to get to the airport.
So what are you supposed to do? Like take a screenshot, send it to the traveler, and be like, "Hey, I'm at the airport. Here's a WhatsApp from
Yeah,
you
like
guys. Can you believe this?" Or like, but who the heck? This is like forwarded to you from somebody. It's like, are we supposed to believe
exactly.
it?
Right? These are all the questions that come up. So I was like, okay, fine. So that was the end of my interaction with Cathay, which I mean, it was all very pleasant customer service and professional, and no complaints on that. 24-hour time hits for the WestJet flight. So I check check her in, got a great seat, paid for the bag, and because the WestJet site is only computing, their flight, there's not really any information on the remainder flights. So a lot of people think that code shares and alliances are, they work swimmingly well, but
Oh
sometimes they
yes, they
do.
do.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And this one, it was kind of just a bit gray. It's like, well, I then went to the Cathay site to continue the check-in, set an alarm, checked her in, and it just automatically gave a horrible middle seat. There
Oh
was
no.
absolutely nothing on that seat map that I could do. Pay, no pay, nothing. It's just like it was locked out. And maybe the flight was so oversold. I don't know. Something was going on that was a bit of a mystery to me. And then it was a weird site. It didn't really ask about bags. It kind of was just more like a documentational check-in. So
So if it had been, say, like a different code share, say like a WestJet and Delta, are the odds there that it probably might have been a smoother?
might have been. You're right. Yeah. She goes to the airport for the WestJet flight in Edmonton, checks in, no problem. The bag has been paid for, no problem. Gets into Vancouver, hang out. bring it back to the airport. I said, I'm being an av geek. I'm like, I'm determined. We're not going to let you fly in a
In the
crappy
middle
middle
seat all the
seat.
way to Hong Kong.
Yeah. So now remember, she's checked in. The bags are all good. They're all airside. It's all good. She got her boarding pass. I'm like, we got to go to the counter, or for me to help. We got to go to the main check-in counter. I'm like, you can go to the gate and try and get an aisle seat, but by that point, it's too late because by the time the
So
agents
she
show
had
up,
a pretty decent layover by the sounds of it, huh?
yes, this is a
Okay.
family immersion, 8 hour layover with us, so
Okay.
it's good. But yeah, if she was to do this at the gate, and this is an important tip, it's almost too late because the whole flight's assigned at that point.
And weight and balance and everything's already been
Yeah, yeah.
probably determined, right?
I mean, an agent shows up at the gate about what, let's say an hour and a touch before the flight, and most people are generally checked in by an hour and a touch
Yeah.
before the flight.
But I mean,
So
if you're doing
let's
this
say,
like 6 hours out, it's like, okay, you've still got a decent bit of
yeah.
wiggle room, eh?
So we go to the counter, and it's prime time. It's like banging. There's like 100 people in line. There's bags, and I'm trying to find the kiosk because maybe we can just manipulate on the kiosk. Well, interesting thing they've done here, and I noticed a few other airlines have done this. They routed the queue stanchions through the kiosk. So
Mm.
there's no kiosks that are like sort of in that walkway section. You have to line up with everybody, and eventually, sort of mid queue, you hit the kiosk, and there's like an agent there helping everyone, processing them through, pushing them through. I'm like, I see the efficiency, but for me, that's trying to like just go to a kiosk and do something. I can't do anything because there's no kiosk to go to.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, let's just go to the business class
And
premium.
in YVR, there's not like shared kiosks with Cathay and other airlines that you could just sort of randomly pull up at the
Uh,
airport.
there are shared kiosks, but I never did check if Cathay was showing up. They kind of regionalized them, like the ones in the international terminal building
Yeah.
have X, the ones in the US section have the US carrier. It kind of moves around a bit. So
Okay.
yeah, I never did stop. I should have done that to see if Cathay shows up. Anyway, we go to the business class and premium economy line. So I was like, well, who cares about the class? You're here to do a simple transaction, seat change, and probably also passport verification. So go up, very nice, excellent agent. And she's like, oh, here's another weird thing that happened. When she checked in with WestJet, it produced two boarding cards, not three. So
It got missed.
no, actually,
No, but which one didn't get printed?
neither. So the first flight,
What?
yeah, Edmonton, Vancouver, standard boarding pass. The second boarding pass printed with a barcode and all had two flights on it.
Uh, okay.
It was Vancouver, Hong Kong, KUL, and all the bag tag stickers are on the back. I was like, this does not look like a normal boarding card to me, but it has a barcode. Like she probably could have gone through security, but I bet you in Hong Kong,
Yeah,
something
it
would
would
have
have
gone
been
wrong.
fun.
So the agent looked and was like, yeah, no, this is not correct. I'm going to sort everything out here. And I got to check your passport anyway. And then, of course, I probed. I'm like, oh, is there any chance of getting an aisle seat? Okay. Yeah, they looked. And next thing you know, she had what I think is the best economy aisle seat on that aircraft because it's a 333 config. So she was in a bank of three in the aisle, but in front of her was a two
Oh, nice. So she's got the whole.
openness. So
Yeah,
yeah. And again, here we go where, what is on the system is one thing where you have a flight that's completely blocked out that even their own agents can't even touch and manipulate. But at the airport, it's a very different story. This agent was able to assign seats that were probably blocked out, and found a very nice individual and said, you know what, sure, I'll give it to her because why not?
yeah.
Yeah. So that was an interesting
She's nice to me
experience.
in line
Yeah.
and
Knew
having a
exactly.
pleasant conversation. Yeah,
Yeah. And I had primed this person. I'm like, ask for this, then ask for this, and then ask for this because I know or I knew what this agent is looking for on the screens. So I think that helped. And we've kind of said this throughout all our experiences. Part of this Seat 1A is knowing how to be efficient and work with the people on the other side of the desk. Right. So
exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're making this on your team as best you can.
exactly. So yeah, it was good. So that was an interesting piece with Cathay that recently happened.
And then she got two passes or two boarding passes,
Yep. Everything else was hunky dory from that point on, as one would expect.
and arrived without incident.
Yep. And all three bags showed up.
All right.
Yeah. I think you knew of a person recently that had some wonky stuff going on
Yeah,
with a trip in
so
the
this
Middle
person I
East.
know, not I can't provide a lot of details of like specifics, but so they were flying with an American carrier from Toronto through the US to a Mideast destination. And so first set of flights were good. And then they get a couple of months later, they get another email to say, actually, we're going to change. Now you're going to have to connect in the US to connect again in the US to your overseas destination. But the destinations, the one outbound from Toronto had like a 40-minute layover, and the other one had like a 35-minute layover. And he's like, come on, like,
And these
I'm
are
not
major
going to,
US hubs, right?
these are major US hubs. He's like,
Oof.
I'm not going to do less than an hour in a major US hub at risking, the overseas flight.
No kidding. I mean, unless you're going literally from airline to airline, it's
And
impossible.
I'm like, how the heck is this airline doing this? Like saying, well, this is our recommended change of flight. It's like, are you guys not even like looking at your recommended connection time? Like, because it seemed like it was out of sorts. It's like sometimes when you search on Google Flights, and I'm just poking around for fun, they're like, okay, well, we're gonna take you from like Newark to JFK, and you're gonna be able to make this connection in 3 hours. I'm like, are you serious? Or like Newark Terminal A to Terminal C. It's like, but you have to go through security again. And they're like, well, you can do this in like an hour and a half. It's like, have you guys even
Yeah.
flown
Walk the
through some of
talk.
these airports that you're offering these particular flights?
Yeah.
So person obviously said no. And then so the tickets that were being booked initially were for their partner. And then they decided to book a flight themselves. And they asked, hey, can I change the flight information of my partner to to come back to Canada a day later? And the airline's like, yeah, I mean, we normally wouldn't, but in this particular case, I have left instructions in the system to waive all change fees.
And who's the
So
I? A customer service
yeah,
agent?
so the customer service is like, yeah, I as the customer service agent, and they sent an email, their name and everything. It's like I've put instructions in the system to waive the fees. So then they were like, all right, that's great. Then they call a couple of days later to confirm, okay, well, my wife is good with it, want to book on whatever day. And the person they call, they say, well, yeah, we can see the instructions in the system, but the system's telling us that you have to pay to change. It's like, well, what did this other person do? Like, you could obviously override this. You see the employee ID, the employee information of this other person, but telling the customer that, sorry,
Not going to
we
honor
can't.
it.
Yeah, we're not going to honor what we've written you, and you're going to
Ooh,
have to pay.
that's low. That's low.
Yeah, and then a customer's like, oh, I don't know what the full discussion was, but it's like, okay, let's coordinate it. Here's all the details, whatever, and then they send it off. And then the customer shows up at Pearson, and the airline's like, yeah, we're not going to print your boarding pass until you pay. And he was like, what the hell? Like, you've
And so they
told me.
basically held his flight hostage on him.
Exactly. Yeah. Even though they said, hey, we're going to waive change fees. And then obviously he complained, and they're like, okay, well, we'll send it to our refund review people to see if you qualify. And then they respond, they say, well, your ticket was non-refundable and we can't issue a refund.
Ooh,
So
that's
as of
brutal.
right now, it's still pending what's going on back and forth with the airline and other parties involved. But I'm just like, what are you supposed to do
When yeah, you
when
call
you
into
get it in writing twice from the customer service representative or customer relations or whoever to say, yeah, I've put this particular status on your account to say waive change fees. And then when you complain, they're like, yes, the waive change fee status was on the account. And it's like, but then I've sent it for a review, but it should be like, No, why are you sending it for review? You're the one who said it was waivable. Why didn't you just take care of it?
Exactly. It's like the left hand not talking to the right hand.
Yeah, sales
Oof.
office not talking to the customer relations office.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I mean, generally we see that, cases like this, it does get resolved. Kind of like, as we open, we say with the Singapore Airlines thing, the passenger, it did get resolved, but look at all the
Yeah.
headache and mental anxiety that
Yeah,
passengers.
exactly. And then, and it's like, Canadian Transportation Agency, and it's like, all right, so you're getting the airline's getting multiple departments and people involved where it's like, all right, it's less than $1,000. I mean, obviously revenue is revenue, but it's like how
Yeah,
much how much extra time are you paying as an airline, for lawyers and everybody else,
exactly.
where you
To
could have
deal
just
with
taken
this
care of
headache.
this up front.
Oh, I'm already getting
So,
stressed just talking about
and
it.
I was just like, all right. And I thought my experience with, in Vienna and Turkish was bad. I'm like, well, thank God I didn't have to like,
Yeah, no kidding.
okay, bring out your passport, bring out your credit card.
I mean, it's one thing, like we said in the ticketing one, when it's simply you owe money,
Yeah.
but there was no promise. It's just like, okay, well,
Yeah.
that's just the
Well,
way
I
it is. But
mean,
this is on a assumption that what's been done is done.
yeah, and I mean it's like your conversation about that person who was, no e-ticket attached, when you booked him
Yeah,
into Calgary and you had to go find him. It's like, well, at least he knew what was going on, that there were things and it was a corporate fair, but it was just like this one, it's like, all right, you've promised me that this is gonna work this way, and it
exactly.
doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, that's terrible.
And no kidding.
Yeah.
If you're liking this episode experience, you may also enjoy Experience 60. We appreciate your patience, wait times, and customer support. It's available wherever you listen to your podcasts.
I also have another story here about a family traveling on WestJet. So they're relocating. They're moving from Vancouver back to Ireland, Dublin. And they had to put their bag allowances right to the max, paid and unpaid. So two adults and a 2.5 year old. So they looked and did the research, and as a passenger, you can take maximum 4 bags each. So they're like, okay, 4, 8, 12. But you can also, on top of that, check in the stuff for the 2.5 year old, like the stroller and the car seat and all this kind of stuff. So fine, it was all set up ahead of time, and they had paid for all these extra bags. All good. When you went to do the 24-hour online check-in, select, because when you buy a fare for a 2.5 year old, it's still a paid seat.
Yeah.
So once you start going through the process, then suddenly it said you have to pay for another piece because one of them didn't count or something like this. So at online check-in, it forced them to pay. It was 60 Canadian dollars. I mean, it wasn't like over the
Yeah.
roof.
Yeah.
But I mean, the people traveling, they were on top of things. They were of the know. They had calculated everything and weighed out everything. It was fine. But yeah, it wouldn't allow him. So he had no choice but to check in, pay the $60. And he's like, okay, right, we'll try and sort this out at the airport. So I was there at the airport with them because I had to help them get everything in. And what the check-in agent sort of determined is that when they went to online check-in and the system recognized that this was a young child, and I think the stroller, the car seat, something had claimed one of these
What?
bags, but when it shouldn't have,
Okay.
because the agent said, "Yeah, the way you've done it is fine." But then the dad was like, "Okay, but now I'm out $60, and you're telling me that I didn't need to be out $60, but the only way to online check-in was to pay the $60." And this is where it all kind of came to a stop because the airport agent has no control, which is true. They can't just suddenly refund $60
Hmm.
out of the ether. They're there as a transactional person, check bags, bag tags, boarding passes, go, go, go.
So who would refund?
Customer
Ticketing?
service,
Oh,
ticketing,
okay.
customer service. Exactly. I mean, I suppose if they had time, they could have gone to a central customer service desk, which actually doesn't exist in Vancouver for this airline with WestJet. So he now has to call in from Ireland, figure out how he's going to do this call in,
Yeah.
and then go through all the data, baggage tags, et cetera, et cetera. And this is going to get probably a bit difficult for them because once a flight has taken place, a lot of your information gets purged out. It's
Right.
done. I mean, obviously, there's privacy laws which engage that, but a lot of the transactional stuff is pretty much done. So I'm curious to see if they're even going to bother
Yeah.
chasing this down because $60 for your time. I don't know. I'm not even sure if I would do it
Yeah.
and just complain to myself that it shouldn't have happened. Now,
I mean, for me, I
continue.
mean, I don't know if it would be a call. It would be me more for me would be like, all right, I have a PDF of my receipt, and
Here's
here's
all
all
the
the details.
bags.
Here's
Yeah,
all the details, and like, all right, you guys, take a couple weeks to figure it out and send me a message back.
exactly. But then also, this in this particular scenario, this is a family that's moving to Ireland. They're now Ireland based. Are they going to be flying WestJet anytime soon? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. They're not going to come back to Canada anytime like immediately soon.
Hmm.
So even if he gets a 60 Canadian dollar
Yeah, but who's to say it would be a voucher? Why not just say like when I got refunded by Air Canada was an
direct to credit card,
e-transfer?
yeah, yes, you're right. If that is a way to do, then yeah, that would work. That would be the ideal versus a
Yeah,
voucher.
yeah. So I
Back
mean,
to
if
like
if
the
if you
Singapore Airlines.
yeah, so if he had say like still has a Canadian banking account, it'd be like, all right, like we'll just send it on back, and there you go.
Yeah, I guess in this case, because it was an isolated single one-time purchase of,
Hmm.
it's not like you bought it with the whole ticket or anything.
Yeah,
It's a little bit easier. And again, like I mentioned, the Singapore Airlines thing where they're trying to give him like Chris Flyer vouchers and all this nonsense. Like they just want the money back because
yeah,
otherwise it's kind of meaningless in terms of your
yeah.
personal financial cash flow.
Well, and I mean, it's the same as like, if you're in like, say, traveling or something, you're at a store and it's like, well, I want a refund. And it's like, well, we can give you store credit. I'm not going to be back in your country ever. And this chain of stores doesn't exist in my own
Exactly.
country. So
Exactly.
why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now this same family, they fly to Ireland and then I get an email, hey, can you help us out with her vacuum cleaner?
Okay.
Like, excuse me, what? I guess I mean, again, you're moving house, so you pack everything. They pack their Dyson vacuum in their checked bag. I, why they want to take the Dyson, I don't know. But anyway, it got pulled from the bag because of the large lithium ion battery. Fine. WestJet took the liberty to message the passenger saying, hey, we had to pull your bag. It is in YVR. Feel free to come pick it up anytime. Now, of course, the person writing the email doesn't know that these people have moved away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they said, oh, can someone pick it up? Being me. And they messaged me, hey, do you mind picking it up and sell it or use it, whatever, just to not have this asset go into the
To
garbage.
waste. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Fine. Sounds good. I received this email on Monday of this past week, Tuesday.
Yeah.
I have a trip coming up just over a week away, and I'll be passing back through into YVR on a Monday. I said, oh, well, maybe I can pick it up on my way back and then just bring it home instead of having to make a separate trip to the airport, park the car, go in, and have to do all this. So I email and follow up from the thread, and the person that has contacted the passenger saying, hey, I'm so and so. I'm the one that's going to be picking it up. As they've mentioned, can I come on? I think
X
it's
date.
October. Yeah. I'm just looking at the date. It's 10
10
days
days
from
from
now.
now. Yeah.
Because further down in the email, it says this little story about how, it's common for passengers to have their vacuums pulled and they have a cupboard full of Dysons that people haven't claimed. I'm like, okay. They write
Oh, there's
back
a
with
story.
this, yeah. They write back with this sort of form answer saying, well, typically we only hold these things for 72 hours, but we've made an exception in this case. Can you come within the next 7 days?
And you're like, down below, you're telling us that you've got a
A
cabinet full of
cupboard
these
full of
things.
them. Yeah, I'm like, otherwise it's gonna be discarded. I'm like, well, clearly you're not discarding them. So
Yeah.
what's going on here? So it's a bit, again, what happens online versus offline,
Yeah.
left hand versus right hand gets doesn't always line up, and then just becomes simply annoying. So now
And
I have to go.
did you ever have any like vacuums when you were like having to, I know, I mean, I remember your meat stories and other stuff with luggage, but no vacuums, right?
No vacuums. Yeah, that's a good one. No.
No, because I guess Dyson wasn't maybe necessarily making that product at that time.
True. Fair enough.
And
Yeah.
lithium ion batteries weren't to the level where they are now.
And no, they weren't that much. I mean, they were. It's always a dangerous good, but they weren't that level of dangerous good awareness
Yeah.
in those times. So yeah, it's interesting how things kind of play out when you're trying to seek assistance
Hmm.
and get some recovery. Or actually, sometimes these scenarios lead to you needing to get assistance because it didn't play out the way that it should. Like your story about the person where they had to pay the money, even though it said you don't have to pay the money.
Exactly. And I think it's like, calls and things are good, but I still think, like in many cases, as you mentioned, if you are able to somehow do stuff in person,
Yeah.
you
You just get
you have a
so
better
much more
chance.
done. Absolutely. Yeah. 100% agree. So, well, there you go. That's a good little rant about the systems at play.
No kidding.
Uh, so, what do we have in
What
the
do we got
news?
in the news? Yeah, let's take a look here. You had one about closing of an airport.
Yeah, and I think we can kind of think about this one for a little while. So, from simple flying, Honolulu Airport closed over medical emergency because an air traffic controller suffered an unspecified health incident. You don't really hear about that happening too often. The airport basically had to halt operations for just under an hour, and it impacted 70 flights on the ground, in the air, because it must have been, well, I mean, it was enough of a medical emergency where first responders had to get called in, go into their ATC, air traffic control, and assist the person. And it threw the whole thing off. So, yeah, something kind of different. That's, as a passenger, you probably may not have, none of those people probably realized, because I doubt the captain would have come on board and said, oh, well, our friend in the ATC just had a severe heart attack or something.
Yeah, yeah.
It would have just been like, there's delays.
Yeah, there's a situation at the airport which has caused us to delay it or something, and something weird went through its security, through the belt, and they didn't track it right, or who knows what. But it's like, yeah, we had to close it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm thinking of like, say, I know like New York, like the regional ATC there. They have a staffing shortage this year anyway, which has caused a bunch of delays, particularly for United. And yeah, to think it's like, well, okay, if that was to happen there, it'd be like, oh
Mhm.
my, like that'll make it even more fun than normal.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's something we can kind of look at in upcoming
And like
experiences.
you yourself having worked at Edmonton for a fair length of time. I mean, there's the Northern Canada higher elevation aircraft or air
Yes.
control.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, like if that, or say like, Gander, New York, or Oceanics, or Shanwick, or Oakland, or whatever, if like something was to go down there, it's like, so what happens to, say, like overseas flights? It's like, well, that gets interesting, particularly if it was during a rush hour.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see if we can look into this more in upcoming experiences to the mechanics of how things work at ATC and how they react and deal with
And cover
situations.
things like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. And I've got one. I mean, last episode we were talking about, what days of the week are good to fly. And this one's from Simple Flying, talking about Allegiant Airlines, and that only 5% of Allegiant's October flights are on Tuesdays.
Only 5%.
Exactly.
That makes me wonder what happens to the 95% that are
Yeah, do they
not
just sit for a day
sit.
and they have like non-rev?
It seems very inefficient,
Yeah,
but it is
it's
Allegiant.
like, yeah, true. But I guess, it's like whatever it is, 5% on Tuesdays, 7% on Wednesdays, 10% on Saturdays, 16 on Friday, 19 on Monday, 20 on Thursday, and not surprisingly, 24% on Sunday. So obviously somebody's done some numbers, but I think Allegiant is what? More of a hotspots.
Yeah, Hotspot and Bizarre Spot, low
Yeah.
cost carrier. This sounds like Tune Up Tuesday.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's like, hey, if you need to do your checks,
Yeah, exactly. The poor maintenance staff probably have to like get ready for Tuesdays. It's like, all
yeah.
right, we got the full fleet. Let's go.
But I guess, it's like they state here that Tuesdays and Wednesdays are generally the best days to get a cheaper flight because the demand is less, and
Yeah.
those days and Saturdays have the least demand. And so essentially, so they mentioned Allegiant and then Breeze in the US, and we had spoken to the founder of Breeze a few
Yes,
years
Mr.
ago.
Nailman. Yeah.
Exactly. And then Volatea in Europe. So they concentrate on operating on particular days much more than others. So they operate older aircraft that don't have to be used as much to reduce the seat mile cost of aircraft ownership.
No, that's very interesting. I never thought about this. Use your older planes on the quieter days and maximize the newer ones on the other days.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So you
Yeah.
don't necessarily have to get to the checks as quickly.
Yeah. I'm going to start paying attention to that. Yeah. Cool.
All right. So that wraps up experience 77 of the Seat 1A podcast. If you liked this podcast experience, be sure to rate us and subscribe. Tell your friends and fellow travelers about us. Make sure you visit us at podcast.seat1a.org for complete show notes. That's Sierra Echo Alpha Tango, the number 1, alpha.org. Feedback, addenda, letting us know where we've messed up. You can send all of that to stories, STORIES, at seat1a.org. If you'd like to support the show financially, we have a page at Patreon, patreon.com/seat1a. Links are included in the show notes.
And here's what you can look forward to on upcoming Seat 1A podcast experiences. We are going to look at pets and animals in flight and all the wild tales that surround that. And also, we'll take a look at flying with a disability potentially, and also more interviews that we're lining up and talking about. We have a few other upcoming trips from our end, so we'll debrief those as always. As always, we look forward to your stories. If you have anything fun and interesting you would like us to discuss or some wild travel tales, please do get in touch. We would love to hear from you.
Excellent. So until the next time, I'm Geoff. Thanks for listening.
And I'm Vinod. You're cleared for takeoff. Have a great flight.